Hello everyone, back at it again. One of my previous videos I mentioned modifying a Z-Man Project Z chatterbait to take it from, well, I'll just be honest, it's really unfishable right out of the package. But with modifying it, you can make it into a great bait that will come through almost anything, and you can put that chatterbait after it's modified in places where fish just don't see other chatterbaits. I'm talking, heavy lily pads, brush, wood, really thick weeds. As long as you have enough water to get that blade to vibrate and thump, you can fish weedless chatterbait. And the one, I already mentioned it, but it's the Project Z, and there's two flavors of it. There's the weedless one, which we're interested in, and there's kind of a plain Project Z chatterbait. Now for me, this one really doesn't have any appeal because it has the same limitations of the other one without the benefit of a weed guard. So I'd recommend fishing a jackhammer, an Evo, a naked chatterbait. There's a lot of other chatterbaits on the market that you don't have to modify nearly as much. If I could only have one though, it would be the jackhammer. So that's what I'd recommend instead of this. Now, the Project Z Weedless, let's get a good picture here. What makes it weedless is this weed guard, like you find on a standard bass jig, which is awesome. Now that is the difference maker for this chatterbait. And if there was another one like it, I'd probably recommend you fishing with it. But I haven't found any that come through as cover as well as this one once you modify it. So let's talk about what we're going to modify. The biggest thing is that the eye coming off of this molded lead is open. And you can see how thin that part of the blade is right there. And if this blade, even during casting, rotates through the air and finds that gap, it can wiggle its way out. You can imagine this kind of, I don't know what to call it, limitation is even worse when there's a fish, an angry fish attached to the hook. You're putting a lot of pressure on an open eye there, and that eye can open up even a little bit, and it'll make it easier for that blade to come off of the jig. And what happens is you reel in a blade and a snap. And we just can't have that. So we have to come up with some way of closing that loop. So you can imagine closing it with a pair of pliers. That's step one. But step two really needs to be able to seal that open eye shut. All right, we mentioned the snap briefly. The snap is okay, but you see it's got this loop and a hook here. And it's got this extension of wire and then a few more wraps here. What this does is catch weeds, especially thin, clingy weeds. And so I want to remove that. The weed guard is fine. I fished one version where I cut it at kind of a flat angle. So I only have a little bit of a weed guard, and I just have to lean into them and set the hook. Much like a jackhammer. And I have another one which I leave long. In that one, you need to set the hook like you're setting a jig hook fish. Really put the screws to them. It's possible that this weed guard will fall out, so I put a little bit of super glue right there. And then we get to the skirt. The skirt, for my taste, is a little bit short on the outside and a little bit long on the inside. Now, if you weren't going to use a trailer, this is fine. But for me, I'm always going to fish these chatterbaits with some kind of trailer, either a spunk shad, a Zaco. There's some new chatterbait trailers from Berkley. They've got a Power Stinger and Beast Coast. I forget the name of theirs. It's Blade Runner. That's what it is. So I'm always going to fish with a trailer on this hook here. And so I want a single layer skirt that extends a little bit further, and we get rid of all of this business where there's going to be a trailer. So luckily, Z-Man makes a skirt like that. It's called the Easy Skirt. And we'll go and take a look at that. It's got a bunch of good colors. I like this bluegill color. They come in a 3-pack, so what's that, $1.33 each? It's a pretty good deal. And it makes a world of difference. And you can't really tell from the pictures, but this skirt material is a little bit longer than what comes with the Weedless Project Z. Now you can take that skirt off the Weedless Project Z and use it for something like a Mini Max, where it's a shorter profile overall, smaller hook. Don't throw it away, you can save it for later. And these easy skirts, you can pop on and off fairly easily, hence the name. Yeah, so bluegill's great if you're in a lake where they respond well to black and red, maybe with a black and red trailer. That'd be great. They got black, blue, chrome. Got a lot of different colors. Chartreuse Sexy Shad. I would flip this upside down so the white is the belly. Kind of looks like a perch. You could make it into whatever you wanted. The green pumpkin shad, again, to me this is upside down, dark on top, lighter on the belly. But that's a great color. Got a lot of good colors. Again, upside down, I'd put the white on the bottom like a belly and the dark on top. So those are some skirt options. You could also fish, a full-size jig skirt. There's a bunch of other replacement options, but I like that single layer, especially with a trailer, because I think it flows better. If you have a thick inner layer to the skirt, it's going to just glom onto the trailer and not have that secondary action that I'm looking for. Second thing we're going to need is a Decoy egg snap. Now this is the same snap that's on a jackhammer. It's very high quality. It's probably the best snap that I've found, and I use it in a lot of different sizes, from swim baits down to, I think the smallest I would recommend is the 1.5 size. That's the size I use on the Mini Max. Anything smaller than that, and it's more prone to flexing. The 1.5 will flex too on bigger fish, or if you're really horsing them. And it looks like the size 2 is on back order, but that's the size you need. There's no way around it, so you might have to source it from somewhere else. All right, so we've gone through what's wrong with the Project Z, how we're going to fix it, some of the components you're going to need, and I'm going to show you in a separate little clip here in a second how exactly we're going to do that. Oh, and you also need some kind of 50, 65 pound braid. You only need a little bit. You could take some off of your frog reel, and it doesn't matter the brand, doesn't matter anything like that, and that's going to help us close that loop. All right, I'll catch you in a second. All right, I'm back at my fly tying bench. I'm going to crimp the open eye of that Project Z Weedless chatterbait down as best I can. And I've already done this step. I put on a number 2 Decoy egg snap. That's the same snap that's on a jackhammer, and it works great. It just takes a little bit of finesse to get it on there. My skirt's not quite even. I'm going to try to even it up a little bit. I don't want to take off really any length. I'm just going to try to even it up a little bit, because the way it was sitting on that jig head wasn't quite square. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It's actually probably better if it looks a little imperfect. I just want it to be a little bit more even. All right, I've got an old Project Z chatterbait there, and I'm just going to put on a new easy skirt. So once you wear out one of these easy skirts, it's really easy just to put on a new one, like the name would suggest. Same thing. I'm going to take a look at that skirt and try to even it up. Try to get everything in frame of the camera too, and trim it up. Maybe, I don't know, what's that, 1/4 of an inch just to square it off. It's my own personal preference there. But you see how that skirt extends a little bit beyond the bend of the hook and really flares out from the head. All right, next step. We're going to take some leftover, that's 65-pound X9 braid. That's what's on my swim bait rod. And I've got a little bit left that's, you know, it's really not good for anything else except projects like these, small projects where you just need a foot and a half of line, and, you know, on that old spool, there's plenty of that line there. So I just save old spools for little projects like this. Yeah, and what I'm going to do next is tie any kind of double line knot. Here I'm tying a Palomar knot. It's probably the most common knot in bass fishing. But any double line knot that you can tie in 65-pound braid, it doesn't even have to be 65-pound, it could be 50. If the heaviest you have is 30, that's probably going to be okay too. And I've got those 2 loops around the wire, and I'm going to extend it into a position where I can cut it with those braid scissors. I want to cut it as close as possible. Now for most knots, I like leaving a little bit of a tag, so if there's any slippage, it doesn't slip out in the knot. But for this, I want it really tight. And then I'm going to push it to close that loop. And I want it touching the head of the jig head there. I could even push that down a little bit more. And what that's going to do, once I put a drop of super glue on there, is close that loop. And I'm going to put a little bit of super glue on the weed guard too. You can see one of those weed guards is a little bit longer. It extends beyond the hook point. And I'm just showing you can match it up with whatever trailer you like. There's a Beast Coast version. There's a Berkley Power Stinger. And you could use Spunk Shads. You can use Zacos. Whatever trailers you like. Spunk Shad's probably my number one. Sometimes, man, they really like that Zaco too. So I just keep a selection on hand. And as I go through trailers, whether it be from bass or pickerel or whatever, I switch them out, try different things. Some lakes I have favorite colors. But here I'm just adding the super glue to the knot I tied to close up that eye. And while I'm at it, I'm going to add a little bit of super glue to the weed guard too. And then I'm just going to place it so it sits upright on my fly tying bench. And I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to let it dry overnight. This is a project that's best done at night, and when you have some time, and just let it sit and really set up overnight. Alright, that's how to modify a weedless Project Z chatterbait and turn this bait from pretty much unfishable to a fish catching machine. Thank you all for watching. I'll list all the gear in the video description just like every other video. And I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!